Hello there, welcome back to my channel. I am Ken McAuliffe, the Jazz Vinyl Audiophile. Thanks for being here. If you appreciate what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do, what I attempt to do in the confines of my Greenwich Village listening lab, please hit that like and subscribe button. Help me make some money. Help me pay for those illegitimate children I birthed in North Carolina. Or was it North Dakota? Or was it North Saigon? I don't remember. Anyway, I thought I'd talk a little bit about just some things I've picked up recently and some new releases that I've picked up, and a couple things that I reviewed, starting with, on the Cellar 20 label, trumpeter Alexander Claffey. This I can't find any information on this online for some strange reason. Maybe it's a Record Store Day thing? I don't think so. But it features this young man who I don't know on trumpet, but people I do know on Dave Kokoski, Kush Abade, who's a fantastic New York City-based drummer, Aaron Kimmel, I believe another drummer, and at first this just sounded like, we put in the requisite solos and semi-fusion grooves and, just kind of predictable. But then it really opened up and I really started to like it, even though its bottom line is sort of a funky thing. But hey, a cool record. I thought this was Record Store Day, but it is not. It came out last month. Graham Collier, Down Another Road on My Only Desire record. Stockholm Jazz Days '69. I haven't listened to this yet, but I know he's highly regarded among jazz aficionados from the late '60s until the present day. One of the movers and shakers in the UK jazz scene. We have a great store out in Bushwick called Record Shop, more commonly known as Benny's Record Shop. Benny's this really cool guy. I was out there this weekend. There were babies dancing, people clapping. It was a party atmosphere, trying to get to the records. But he has a couple turntables you can check out releases, and it's a really fun destination with the overarching destination of Red Hook, which astonishingly hasn't really changed much since before the pandemic. There are more art galleries. There were no art galleries from what I recall, but it still has kind of a deserted feel. If you go close to the East River, everything is torn down, all the old buildings. That's kind of shocking. They were all just giant warehouses, I guess. But the main street, which I think is Van Brunt, sort of unchanged from 2 years ago, from the last time I was out there. Anyway, Benny always has some really cool stuff. I picked up a great Abbey Lincoln record, which I was not aware of before. That includes Dave Liebman, Al Foster on drums, and two Japanese gentlemen on piano and bass. She's got such an urgent voice. We know her primarily, I think, from her affiliation with Mac Roach, but she was a real force and still is. I think she passed not long ago. Hope I didn't kill her. But if you see her records, they're cheap because people don't care about her anymore. This was $8, and this is a great record. It's just she has so much force and presentation. She's not just singing these songs; she's living them in front of you. She's emitting real power. So that's one fun one I bought. It's coming out of the woodwork, all these unusual Don Cherry performances. We have a new record at the store, and I saw a WCB vinyl covered it. Don Cherry, very brilliantly colored cover. And this is another one, which I'd never seen before, on Black Sweat Records, recorded in 1976 with John Cherry, Donna Vasconcelos, which is really why I picked it up, Gian Piero Promaggiore on guitar, and Moki Cherry on tambura and vocals. You see a Don Cherry record looks like that, you almost know what it's going to sound like. It's going to be quote unquote spiritual and flowing and experimental and sonically a real trip, and texturally something that will sound good on your hi-fi. So I'll report on this one. And Benny got all these really unusual French reissues that I'd never seen. I'd only heard about two with a guy who sort of prowled around the New York underground scene for a while, Francisco Mora, or I believe he changed his name to Francisco Mora Catlett. I could be wrong, but these are very I don't know what to call them, Hispanic jazz, Hispanic salsa, experimental, punchy, riveting records. Mora 1 and another Mora, and I believe these were recorded in the 70s. Well, some people know, some we don't. Ken Cox on piano, Rodney Whitaker on contrabass. These are from Far Out Recordings, which are doing a lot of really interesting stuff. This is really a different thing for any label to reissue, because it's just, I mean, nowadays they throw it in with spiritual jazz, but really, you know, if you're a fan of Kip Hanrahan, who put out these amazing American clave records in the 90s, that stuff still blows my mind. Very New York, very downtown. Carmen Lundy singing on some of it. Great driven, sort of ethnic jazz, percussion driven, very smoky. I think my favorite Kip Hanrahan album on American clave is Desire Develops an Edge. And man, they're just so beautiful. They're like late night, old school New York records, really beautiful recordings. And I kind of lumped this in there with it, both of these Mora records. And then a couple of records with the drummer Jacques Tholat on, and just, you know, definitely, what is this? Souffle Continuum Records. You know, French jazz, 70s, very experimental. In some ways, much more experimental than was happening in the US, even though in downtown New York, there was a lot of funky, jazzy things happening, and you had more of the black protest movement, of the Black to Africa movement, creating these little subsects of free jazz throughout the country. France, in their own liberté, égalité spirit, always went after avant-garde jazz. It really fit them. It's interesting, everybody from Bechet, Sidney Bechet was very popular there, to Albert Ayler, very popular in France. So they've always had a real grasp of this music in a very unique and personal way. And this drummer is wide open. You know, I saw a record at Stranded Records yesterday. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Led by Barney Willen, where he goes to Africa and records with a bunch of African musicians. I couldn't pick it up because I'd already exceeded my quota, but it looked really fascinating. I have a photo of it on my phone. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But this is just really cool French jazz, very open, somewhat free, but very experimental. Here's another one on the same label, Perception, with the same drummer, as well as Jeff Seffer, Didier Libile. I don't know who these people are, but I put it on, you know, I checked it out briefly on my phone, and it was just free, but with a lot of shape and very grounded. And then Benny also had this really cool record from No Business Records, made in Germany, and I bought it because it has Susie Ibarra on drums, one of the great New York free jazz drummers of the 90s, who went upstate and has become much more of a composer and a force in her own right. But this album includes Matt Gustafson on bass clarinet, Will Connell on alto, Dave Hofstra on bass, another well-known New York name, Walter Sweets Perkins on drums. Walter Perkins on drums. Holy crap, throwback, right? And Susie Barr and J.C. Morrison, electric guitar. Now, J.C. Morrison, I believe, is the same guy who built a lot of hi-fi amps. So I put this on, just cool, large band, free, blowing, but in my way, very grounded. So I've been getting into those. And then, of course, now I received a promo copy of this to review, but there was a seam right down the record and the jacket, like someone had taken the record as soon as it was pressed and put the two edges together, because I could not play it. It was like a split flapjack on my turntable. So I bought this because I'm really curious to hear how this sounds against my original. Classic. I have a stereo copy of this, but I wanted a mono copy. One came in the store for $50. I love this record, Black Pearls, John Coltrane. Talk about a bizarre Don Cherry record, Here and Now, from 1977. This is, you know, Don Cherry records are often kind of strange, even though I think they're often quite beautiful as well. But this one matches Don Cherry with essentially the Brecker Brothers from the 1970s. Here's one with Stan Samoli, guitar, Tony Williams, drums, Cliff Carter, keyboards, Neil Jason, bass, Sammy Figueroa. But other tracks have Steve Jordan on drums, Neil Jason's on the bass. This is a set in the Brecker Brothers around here too. So you'll have moments in each song of sort of an ethereal, cerebral thing happening. Then boom, it'll kick into a funk groove. It's like what they're thinking they can like get Stanley Jordan. Stanley Jordan, I saw him last night on TV. Think they can get Don Cherry Records to sell to the Brecker Brothers crowd. Anyway, it's a fun record, but it's just kind of strange. And some of you may know I'm a big drum and bass and electronic music fan. They just reissued this, Feed Me Weird Things. Square Pusher, I have an original of this. I remember I went to interview him in the UK when this album first came out. I went to his house. I met his girlfriend, whose name was Irene, I believe. Oh, Goodnight Jade. Her name was Jade. This is such an amazing document of the power of drum and bass. Just a very jazz record, a very drum and bass record. I love this record. I'm glad somebody reissued it. Now this is a cool record. Ron Carter has put out a bunch of records. He's pretty prolific these days. Never mind, all his credits as the most recorded bassist in history, which I think is true. This is with the accordion player Richard Galliano, and I didn't think much of this when I first put it on. But if you want to hear extremely well-recorded bass in a live situation, this record blew me away. Sometimes Ron Carter plays some odd things. Like, is he playing the song? Just tonally and lyrically, he plays figures that are just kind of strange. But the sound of the bass on this recording is exceptional. And I like accordion. I reviewed this for Stereophile a while ago. It's the jukebox singles of Ella Fitzgerald, which really covers the gamut of Ella Fitzgerald stuff from the early days to sort of the cheesy days, where she covers things like Hot Chocolata, novelty tunes, but it's a very good overview. What came with this from Verve was also the Billie Holiday reissue of the Decca Sessions, which are impossible to find. I've never even seen them. And it's earlier Billie Holiday than the Verve period, which I've moaned before that the Verve stuff is great. That's her most popular stuff. But she's at death's door, and I sort of like Billie a little bit earlier, like on all the stuff that came out in Columbia Masterworks or the Decca material. She's just younger and more youthful, and she's having a little more fun. Oh, and then I bought 3 records at Stranded. Stranded is a store here in New York City that has records I've never seen anywhere else. They have very complete Brazilian section, unusual jazz section, a giant international section, and they had, now I have the Kraftwerk Trans Europe Express with a different cover. It's blue and white with a cyclist on the cover. So I don't know, this says Kling Klang product 1977. So I'm gonna be, it has the track Trans Europe Express, which is like 6 parts on the reissue I have. So I'm curious to see, is this the original? Maybe somebody knows, I don't know. I like krautrock, I like experimental music from the 70s. Edgar Froese, who I believe was Tangerine Dream. I love Tangerine Dream. Klaus Schultz is another one. I love those records. This is out, this was a Black Friday record. They had this, which I've never seen, 30 bucks. And then they had this, which just flipped me out. I sent a photo of this to Paul Wells, and he said apparently this record was sampled by DJ Shadow. I bet on it. Well, Introducing is the record I know. But this was a drum instructional record. Suonando la batteria moderna. Modern drum is a practical guide. Now, I thought this would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, but I sampled it on my phone, and it was like wild and experimental, like Carnival. And on the back, he has the staff music written out for Samba Carnival, Rocking Special, Afro-Cuban, Medium Rock, Moderato Swing, Samba Lento, Fast African Samba. And I haven't split this yet, but the stuff I heard, taken from the original master tapes. This just, I love these. I'm a drummer, I love percussion records, but this looks like tremendous fun. That's what I've been listening to. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe so I can afford to eat eggs in the morning. Bye.